Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Growers Live. I am Josh Satin. Excited to be here tonight as usual. We have two amazing guests on this evening, and hope you guys are enjoying these live shows. We're having a lot of fun with them, and we are going to continue moving through with them throughout the holidays and into the new year, and we're really excited. And we're going to have some amazing guests on, like usual. As usual, I try to keep the announcements brief, but in 2 weeks will be December 5th. We will have Spencer Rudolph from Sage Hill Ranch Gardens. I got to visit them in February, right before COVID, and I was blown away. There's a bunch of videos. I'm one on my channel, a bunch of no-till growers about what their farm, and really excited about that. But tonight we have Corinne and Matthew of Lovin Mama Farm in Amsterdam, New York, and I think we're gonna have a lot to talk about between all the things they got going on with their expansion plans, their growing strategies, their managing their family, and all sorts of cool stuff going on with them, and growing a lot of vegetables and flowers. So lots of cool stuff to talk about. And just a reminder that if you're not already a member of the Patreon of No Till Growers, I'd highly recommend going to check that out. You can get on for as little as $2 a month, and that's how we're able to bring this show and a lot of other things to you guys. And remember that the first questions that come in for the evening are from our Patreon members. So enough of that plug, but No Till Growers, patreon.com/No Till Growers, and that's all I have for you guys today. Let's get Corinne and Matthew in here.
Hi.
Hey guys, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us.
My pleasure. Thanks for joining us. I know, it's evening, we're all tired, and we got a lot going on, but thanks for making the time.
Definitely. It's a pleasure, for
Cool,
sure.
cool. And you guys have been on the podcast before, so if people haven't listened to that, I'd recommend checking that out too, because that'll give you another snapshot in time, because that was about a year ago, if people aren't following along with what you guys are doing. But if you could take a few minutes and just talk about your farm, what you guys do, size and crops and all that kind of stuff, that'll be great.
Okay, so we're growing in a 3-acre field, which we just recently put a deer fence around. We've been kind of slowly filling that out every year, adding on a new section with 100-foot beds. So we just broke ground in zone 4, our final frontier. So that feels exciting to have built that much new bed space. It really didn't get done till this fall, till the garlic planting, but we grow like over 200 varieties of veggies and flowers. So it gets a little dizzying sometimes, but we do microgreens year round. We'll mostly figuring out if we're going to take January off or not. We do just all the mixed veggies. So far, we haven't dabbled in many of the field crops like potatoes or winter squash, not on our new farm, at least here in New York. We just haven't had enough space, but we're dreaming of expanding into some kind of cover cropping and tarping systems with those crops. And then adding perennials in as well. So we got our first asparagus in the ground this year. We've got peonies and lilacs that we planted the very first year we got here. So just continuing to add on more greenhouse space and infrastructure.
Yeah. And real quick to plug like where we are, we're in Amsterdam, New York, which is, one of the poorest communities in New York State. And we're just outside of town on my father's land, which is 120 acres. There's a nature preserve on the property. So there's a 2-mile walking trail open to the public here. And it's quickly becoming sort of an eco hub where there's an organic farm, a great nature trail to take your family out on a walk on. And you can get some organic food there too. So that's what we're doing.
Very cool, guys. And so first of all, I want to ask about the perennial stuff. I'm sure we'll get into other things, but has perennials been sort of strategy or an idea that you guys wanted to do? You just said you finished your 4th season, I think you said, right? On this property?
Yeah.
That's right.
Well,
Yep.
so were perennials go ahead.
Oh yeah, in California we did have like a few rows of raspberries, and we did work with some perennials. We planted some fruit trees. We were farming in California for like 5 years before we moved here. We were doing it organically, but we used tillage back there, minimally, but still we were tilling to prepare our beds. And so Yeah, we've dabbled with perennials before, and it's always been a big focus for us. Corinne grew up in California, and I remember driving through the valley, Sac Valley, and like she would be able to pick out cherry orchards and this and that. And I was like, I don't know what that tree is, but she loves fruit. She's been picking fruit since she was a kid, for sure. We all love fruit. Everybody loves fruit. We don't have any berries or fruit on our stand, but we have just tomatoes and vegetables. And it's nice to have some things that are a little sweeter, a little bit more like candy, a little better seller. And we would love to can and make jams and such as well. So, yeah.
Oh, I have a nerdy thing to bring up about perennials. We
Yes,
got
please.
NOFA, yeah, NOFA New York, who's our organic certifier, did a soil assessment test or something with a few farms this summer, and our farm was one of the ones they did an assessment on. And the folks that we presented with, there was a farmer there who had one field that was in tillage, but he used cover crops, and they did a test, but the performance had been going down, so he wanted them to test that field. And then they also tested the asparagus field, which was a perennial system, so a no-till system. And this assessment was kind of a way to rely more on observations to quantify what's going on in your soil versus a soil test. Not to say that a soil test isn't important, but just like an added tool for how to assess some soil health, like looking for earthworm counts, looking for water infiltration, looking for soil aggregates, measuring root hairs, looking for coverage, things like that. And the difference between his perennial field and his tillage field were like profound. So perennial systems are just, yeah, they seem like they give back over the long run. In a way, they seem easier. Annual production is so hard. So we definitely want to keep moving towards perennials.
That's
kind
cool.
of like our retirement plan.
Awesome. So it's hard, I think, when you're starting a farm to plan a lot of that stuff, because it takes a lot of time to set those things up and you don't see the results for a while. Was that just a result of like having your sort of business moving now that you have the opportunity to do that? Is that sort of what happened?
Yeah, I mean, we moved here after farming for 5 years in California. We had a business going there. We were really a steam train rolling, and then the lease got pulled out from under us. And so when we moved here, we really realized that we needed to be making money quickly. And we focused on annual production of crops that are good money makers, because we had done enough research to know which crops you make good money on. We've read books, J.M. Fortier, Elliot Coleman, all these books that are really good guides in knowing your crops and what is actually going to make you more money than other crops. So really it was a financial focus of, we need to make this farm float when, all around us in this neighborhood, you have dairy farms that are going under, So, as we all know, farming is a hard vocation, and when you have other farmers not doing well around you, it sort of gives you that drive to be like, I want to be successful. I want to provide for my family and be an example to the world that you can grow food in a way that's really great for the planet and actually makes you a decent living as well.
Cool. Are those perennial systems, are they going in a separate area, or they're kind of like intertwined with the rest of the farm? What does that look like?
There's going to be the main patch we're in right now, which is about a 3-acre field, and we're cultivating, more than 2 acres in it right now. Part of that is going to be dedicated to perennial space, but it's mainly going to be all annuals. And then we have 7 other acres that we're leasing that we're looking into, doing perennials in patches out there, as well as more annuals out there as well.
Okay.
The perennials kind of just squeeze in on the edges, any of the kind of non-uniform corners or pockets of the field. We're kind of sneaking them in there. We did plant asparagus in the traditional 100-foot beds that we have with some sheet mulching, and I think definitely trying to integrate them into the rest of the field.
Yeah, and in general, with our annual cropping, we'll be adding a lot of compost to our beds and building 30-inch raised beds and laying straw after we plant or before we plant to mulch it. And with the perennial systems, we're laying sheet mulch down, like Corinne just said, where we have cardboard, a couple layers of cardboard, and a good amount of wood chips to hold that down on top. We'll add compost around the plantings, build a bed, in the bed between those paths of wood chips. And so that's a general sort of design and, methodology that we use on our farm.
Cool. I love that idea of mixing in perennials wherever they sort of fit, and sort of increasing diversity and taking advantage of little spaces that maybe don't make sense in an annual sort of standardized system. And I know you guys, your farm's been expanding rapidly over the last few years. Can you talk a little bit about, procedures and standardizing stuff and working with a crew and sort of, working that into your farm as you've grown? I think I talk with a lot of farmers and do a lot of content about systems, like, how do you do beds and this and that. But like, I think the management side and the growth side doesn't get talked about a lot, because I think you start a farm and then you're like, I need a person, I need 3 people, I need 5 people. And then you're like, what am I doing with all these people? How do I make this work? Can you talk a little bit on that?
Yeah.
Sure. Let's see.
I was thinking that, the thing about getting employees is that they don't know what you know, most likely. And they might not know exactly how you want to do it either. It's hard to find in general, it's hard to find good farm workers, and that know what they need to know to be able to be, hey, go pick the lettuce. No, you can't tell people to go pick the lettuce. They're going to pick it wrong. And you're going to have a big mess. And then you're going to actually probably be the one cleaning it up, because it costs you too much money to have this person do it the wrong way. And it's tough because, for, 10 years, we made about, $7 to $10 an hour, and learned a lot of hard lessons to get ourselves to the place where we can actually make a living, that's more like closer to $15 an hour. We're almost getting to 15 now. We're paying our crew $13 to $15 an hour. So it's a tough one being a farmer, because you're kind of getting paid less than they are, but you're working harder and you're having to fix the problems that they made. But it's all your own fault. And so the thing about employees is that you're going to need to train them, and you're going to need to be present with them until they really know how to do it. Unless you get really lucky and you find someone who can do things that are otherwise.
We start people off, doing the most basic tasks, and then it kind of goes up from there. So, weeding and flipping beds is kind of like the first thing that people do. And then also coming on harvest days and just bagging greens or picking cherry tomatoes, or one of the more easy to hand off jobs. And we still are doing a lot of the more experienced labor, I guess, but we're slowly finding people and having folks who've stuck around for a few years, and it's starting to look like a team is starting to come together. But it's been really just kind of part-time folks who want to get out on the farm and get their hands in the dirt. And it's been a really fun summer and a fun community of people, and we really try to keep a positive environment and work hard. I'm always telling people to keep flying, keep moving, but also take care of yourself and drink water and take breaks, and, but work hard. And I have to remind them a lot. But when you get a big crew together, it's amazing. Like, we planted our tulips in one day. We had thousands of tulips to get in the ground, and it was just done in a morning. So I'm grateful for them all the time. Just that energy of getting a bunch of humans together, like a lot can happen. And so it's just keeping that energy directed and making sure everyone knows what they need to be doing, and keeping, folks on track and on task. And so we're really learning more about how to be better managers, how to set up, expectations, and just simple, like Matthew said, it always comes down. If there's ever an issue, it's always our fault for not communicating better, is kind of how we see it. So it's always on us to manage people properly and let everyone know what they're supposed to be doing, and keep everyone safe. It's a lot.
One of the things I remember saying on the last podcast we did was that you've spent years and years learning all these little tricks that you learned to be more efficient on your farm and get things done in a way that it provides maximum efficiency and top quality product. You've learned all these little secrets. Now you need to communicate those secrets to your staff so that, and carefully, tend to their questions. And, because to you, it's so easy. You've done it, I don't know, 10,000, 100,000, million times. You've picked spinach leaves, and you get really good at it. And you're going to have to help them get good at it too. And you're going to have to give them hints and secrets and try to word it in 20 different ways because they're not understanding it. And you're going to need to stand right next to them and show them which cherry tomato is ripe and which one isn't, because they don't know. And that's okay. You need to realize that it's going to be really hard to get them to the point where it's worth it for you to pay them to do the work there. And sometimes you need to say, look, I can't have you working here because it's taking too long. Can we have you volunteer for a week or two? And we can get you going on these things, and then maybe we'll be able to pay you after that. But you can't pay people money to not get the work done, and then your farm's losing money and you're not getting the work done. It doesn't work. It's just, you're going to put yourself out of business. You can't.
For some reason, I'm thinking about our kids right now. Our boys are 13 and 14, and they've grown up on the farm. And Rosemary too, our 8-year-old, she's pretty good. They were like my flower harvest crew, because I had some bad experiences with harvesting help where there's been some tragedies with the employees before with the flowers. And so I kind of only trust my kids, and it's so cool to see these teenage boys out there learning how to cut flowers, crushing it. They can take an entire bed of snapdragons. It takes them an hour, but it's they get hundreds of stems. So there's a value for sure. It's like a life skill, or it takes years, and they've had years, even though they're kids, just being around it, they've absorbed it or something through osmosis. And
kids watch you. That's what they do.
Yeah, they were literally on my back when they were babies watching me do it, and now they're doing it. So
they know all our secrets.
They can teach everybody else. That's perfect too.
Yeah.
I have a bunch of follow-up questions. One is, you mentioned being in the community that you're in, being a pretty poor community. I talk to a lot of people that are in more rural areas trying to do market gardening, and how's your strategy work? Because I know a lot of market gardens, the produce is expensive, right? You're growing organically, hand labor, direct sales, it's expensive. How does that work in an area like where you guys are at? Is it just connecting with the right people, or have you had to grow different kinds of food? How does that work for you guys?
So when we moved here, we, like I said before, realizing that we needed to make a good amount of money, we realized that we really did need to find a market where we could sell the produce for what we needed to sell it for. And we really realized that Amsterdam was not really that community. There actually isn't even a farmer's market there. So we put serving the Amsterdam community on the back burner until we could get to a position in our farm that we, actually felt like we could do that. So that's where we're at now. And that's why, when we're thinking about the future and what our next steps are, we're trying to figure out a way that we can use the privilege that we have really to have land and to be able to farm it, to benefit our community and give back when a lot of those community members don't have land to grow on. They might know more than I do about farming. They might have grown up in Puerto Rico and grown pineapples I don't know, they could know all this stuff and they don't have the space. That's a really sad story. So we're trying to find some way for us to be able to give back, whether it be education of how to grow no-till or a little space on our farm that they can try stuff. We're figuring out if we can do CSAs on a sliding scale for that community, finding some way that we can reach out to that community and give back.
Yeah, right now we donate a lot of our leftovers to some free food, the free food fridge programs that are going on in Albany. But it's a slow but long-term goal of ours is to, yeah, definitely connect with our community, our close by community.
So do you guys have to
Yeah,
travel quite a ways to get to a market?
Yeah, we drive about like 45 minutes
Okay.
to our main market, and don't mind us as we're moving closer.
Our computer's
to
running out of battery.
cord.
Sorry.
Okay.
But
We should have thought about that earlier.
We go to a market in Troy, New York, and
Okay.
that's about 45 minutes away. And then we go to a Schenectady market as well, and that is like 20 minutes away.
Okay. You guys get your power cord sorted out?
Not far.
You know this
Sorry.
table? Yeah, we're almost
Yeah.
sorted.
I guess that should be a question I should ask everyone before they start. Is your computer plugged in? Not do you have a beverage for yourself?
Sorry,
Wow, we
guys.
are. Oh boy. That light is bad, maybe.
So that's cool. Because I get people that ask, they're like, I'm in a really rural area, and they see all these market gardeners that are doing really well and selling their crops for a lot. And they're like, I can't sell here. Like, I can't sell lettuce for whatever a pound. So that's good to know. And it's really cool that you're now becoming in that position where you can work more on the community in a different way than selling them the vegetables and that. So that's really cool. So you said 200 different vegetables and flowers, and like, how can you talk a little bit about that? That's a lot of variety. I know you said you have 20 years experience, but like, I feel like every year I try to add 1 or 2 or 3 maybe, and it's tough.
Yeah. I mean, the varieties can add up really quick as a flower grower, like 10 different colors of zinnias, or maybe more, probably more like 12 to 14. So and then dahlias too. I grow like, 20 different varieties. Tomatoes, we grow so many different varieties. Lettuce, we grow so many different varieties. So it is a lot. It's a lot to keep track of.
We spend a lot on seed too.
Yeah. Microgreens, I grow, but every year we keep paring down as much as we can, and but also adding, I think people are we're known as kind of a way that we can be more of in a niche market is that we have weird stuff. There's a lot of there's a lot of tomatoes and cucumbers and green beans, and so if we show up with the weird green beans, or we put flowers in our salad mix because everyone sells salad mix. That was kind of our strategy at the start. And
but in general, we grow, like I said before, we've always tried to focus on the crops that, turn a good profit. Lettuce and mesclun mix and cut greens are big on that list. Tomatoes are a huge one. We all know that. We find that radishes are a great crop. Beets, carrots. I mean, we sold so many beets this year, and we were really actually quite good at getting crops continually rolling with it.
Because of the paper pot transplanter.
The paper pot transplanter changed our life with that one. And it really has that. The paper pot transplanter has helped our farm get the transplants in the ground at the right time. It really made a huge difference on our farm. And this was the first full year that we were able to put it into use from the start. So our onion planting was about 100 times easier than it usually is. And that was huge. But
can I ask you about the paper pot? I know. How has that been implementing it into a no-till system? Because I know that there's a lot of no-till people out there that like really struggle or give up on it. And I've heard from more and more people being like, I don't want to bother with this because it doesn't work in my system. Have you had to make adjustments in your bed prep or planting schedule, or how does that work for you guys?
Well, I mean, I feel like we were really already doing the bed prep in a way that it would work for it. We had started working with the 6-row cedar from Johnny's back in California and noticed that we were having a really hard time getting it to work with our system. Like you just said, that some people are having trouble with the paper pot transplanter. And it's the same kind of idea because the paper pot transplanter is cutting through the top of the bed, and it needs to have a nice, even, good tilth in that top area to be able to even pull through there. No root balls that stop it, no rocks, no big clumps of compost, And so we have a rotary harrow on our small Kubota tractor. And we had it when we moved here. So it's been a part of our system since we started here in New York. And I believe that it's the thing that makes it so easy for us to use the paper pot transplanter and the Jang 5-row seeder that we got this year as well.
I think some other strategies, yeah, definitely pulling the root balls out is kind of, might not have the best ecological impacts, but it does allow us to more easily use the paper pot transplanter. But also just, we've kind of adjusted more to just using it in this one section of the field that's more the high rotation crops that don't even form a root ball. Or maybe the lettuce root ball is so small that it just comes right out when you're flipping the bed. It kind of, the whole chain kind of pulls up when you're flipping the bed, and the root is so shallow that it doesn't leave much behind.
Yeah, so what we kind of realized when we started to work with the paper pot more, and now the 5-row Jang seeder, is that it's really nice to have your crops organized in your field so that you have an area that has no root balls. And then you can always use the paper pot transplanter there. There's never anything in the way. And then in a different area, you have all your root ball stuff that has, like the
cabbages,
brassicas,
zucchinis, yeah.
And then when you flip those beds out there, you just have to cut above the soil. You don't have to take the root ball out, because your whole system has been designed around the fact that you can leave that root ball in there, and a lot of the crops we grow in the zone where there's no root balls is like, carrots, radishes, beets. Once you pull those out of the ground, there's no root ball in there anymore. It's done. All you have is a few little weeds, and then, maybe hit it with the hula hoe real quick. We'll amend that bed, and then we'll add, with the fertilizer that we use, and then we'll add, 2 to 4 inches of compost, well-finished compost, mixed with a little bit of peat, before we plant again. And when you get that much compost going down on a bed, what you're getting is the ability to pull that paper pot transplanter through that bed, because you're adding a nice soft topping before you plant. So, and once you've done that enough, of course, you can just rotary harrow, and it's all soft. It's gonna go in easy. Hopefully that answers that question. I'm guessing most of the people were having trouble pulling the paper pot transplanter successfully through their beds.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple things that stick out to me there. One is sometimes you have to make things work. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be like, well, we're always leaving the roots in the ground because that's what we need to do. It's like, well, for us to be efficient and make money and make this farm successful, we're going to have to change our system in this area to make this tool work that makes it work. I think that's important. And I think the second thing is thinking ahead with your crop planning. Like, if you have 2 rows of something, like plant 3 rows of something after it, if you're leaving the roots in the ground, those kind of things. I think there's more people starting to think that way.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it does get hard to make sure that your rotation is going to do that 2-3 thing every time. I mean, it's just a headache.
No, but it does work. Yeah,
because
because we do head lettuce on 3 rows, and we do brassicas on 2. So we've interchanged those.
We do it,
yeah,
for sure.
Very cool. All right, I could probably just chat with you guys about farming all night, and this is always what happens on the show. I want to get to a couple questions, if that's cool, and then okay, awesome. So 2 questions from the Patreon members first. Dan Eggert says, Lovin' Mama's farm bouquets look amazing. So 2 questions. Was there a new cut flower that blew you away this year? That's the first question. And what's the best fillers or foliage species to grow for bouquets?
Okay, well, new for us this year, at least successfully on the East Coast, were ranunculus and anemones. They're a spring crop that you plant in our climate. In the Northeast, you plant them in you have to start them in a heated greenhouse when they're just little corms. Start them in February, January, February, March, somewhere in that window, and then get them in the field in a greenhouse by March. There's still snow on the ground. The ground's still frozen, but in the greenhouse, you can get them planted. And they need that cold incubation time to get their roots set up. And then they just produced so many flowers, May and June, mostly June. It was really, really great. And then filler, we use goldenrod, so much goldenrod. We have fields full of goldenrod, which is solidago, which when I lived in California, they sell it in the wholesaler, and it makes me laugh now because we have so much of it. But I know my mom grows a little bit of it in like this shady patch in her garden, but it just thrives here. So really anything that grows, even anywhere you live, there's going to be a plant like that that's just growing so abundantly that definitely wildcrafting if you have enough space on your land. Even just a hedgerow, I sometimes go and pick greens and foliage from the hedgerows just right outside the packing shed. Just whatever sort of twiggy leaf there is adds a lot of body and bulk. But if you're going to cultivate something for filler, amaranth is a nice big fat showy flower, fills that bouquet up really fast.
I feel like status is a great one, and feverfew.
Yeah,
that feverfew.
Yeah. You really, to make a bouquet, you kind of need a balance of a lot of different shapes of flowers. So yeah, you want like a round flower, you want a spike flower, you want a little bit of airy sparkle, and then the filler or the foliage. So
that's all of it right there.
That's the formula. It's really just creating a formula and just throwing them together. For me, making bouquets is like bunching beets. It's really just another farm product that's getting bunched.
I don't think everyone thinks that way. That's just how.
See, if you want to make a bouquet that's arranged, then that's going to cost you more money. It's going to take placement and time. And so what Corinne is saying is when we're selling bouquets,
a market bouquet is $15. A bridal bouquet is $150.
She makes those $15 ones fast, really fast.
Okay, I could not do that. It's not like bunching beets for me. So that's all I'm saying.
I don't know. I bet you could.
All right.
Ooh.
We'll have to. Yeah, I haven't gotten into the flower growing yet. It's always something I've like considered, but I'm like, I have so many more vegetables. I want to get better at growing before veering off too far. It's hard. Like as a farmer, I don't know if a lot of people realize this, but like a lot of crops, you only have one chance at per year, or maybe two, and they're like, well, we'll try that next year.
I think that's why it's so addictive, farming, because there's always next year to try it again. So
yeah. I always say this, just the farmers are like the biggest optimists. They're like, oh, well, next year will be better. All right, cool. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So Daniel Morales says, hey, can you talk more about getting your clay soils up to par? I have silty clay soil, very muddy when wet and very dry when dry. It's the muddiness that's the most challenging. What kind of peat did you use, and what do you think is more helpful in this case, peat or compost?
I think definitely a mixture. And drainage. We put drainage into this one low spot in our field this year. So Matthew just got it done like in the very late fall. So we haven't really seen it in practice yet, but we lost a whole round of carrots in there to rot this spring. It was like the second time it had happened too. We were like, okay, we're going to put drainage in. So it's just one low spot in the field. So eventually you get to know those spots in your field. And if you can throw some drainage in.
That'll also help you with when it's too muddy. If you're trying to get equipment in or whatever, you'll be able to get in faster if it's well drained. And as far as a heavy clay soil goes, you got to be thankful that you have clay and not sand in some ways, because that clay is going to hold nutrients. It's going to hold moisture really well. However, now that we're in the Northeast, we're finding that waterlogged soil is a big issue. Now that we're not in the deserts of California. So I really feel like, building on top of that clay with a fair amount of compost and peat has been one of the big reasons that we've been so successful here. Because on those rainy years, those plants are just a couple inches higher than they would be if they were in the native soil. And they're so much happier up there. And as far as compost versus peat, if I was to add one, I would add compost, because compost actually has some nutrition to it. Peat is too acidic to add alone. Not to mention, it doesn't have any nutrition to it. It's a really great material because it's so light and lofty, and it holds great moisture. These are all the reasons that it's in potting soil, and a seedling mix is mostly peat because of that. Seedlings don't need a lot of nutrition, but your plants do. So I would recommend doing a compost. But as far as any addition to your farm goes, I would be really careful not to make sure that you're bringing in weed seed, and that your compost is actually good. So, because adding bad compost is really, it's going to hurt you.
Or it's just not going to get you moving in the direction you want.
Yeah.
But another interesting thing that the soil assessment that NOFA did with us, it was in the first section of our field that this is our 4th year building beds in there. We tested there, and we've added like 4 to 6 inches at least once a year, probably more like 2 to 3 times a year over the past 4 years. And when they started digging down, it was only 3 inches of compost, peat, whatever, mulch on top of the clay.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what happened over all those additions. It broke down, the worms ate it, and it's slowly getting infiltrated into the clay layer. So we're just kind of letting the worms do that work for us. They also saw a lot of earthworm activity. It was very dry when they were digging in there, but there was, in this small area, there was like 44 burrows that they found and 12 living worms or something like that. So
yeah, I really feel like with the clay soil, when you work it and you don't have any mulch on top, you're going to get a crust after it rains and then dries out, and that could prevent some seeds from emerging easily. Basically what I'm trying to say is when you have a clay, you really need to have a mulch on top, because the clay surface is what makes it really tough. And then, you can add some straw into your pathways, which we basically started doing because we do have that small Kubota, and it was way too wet some years, and we were having trouble staying in the path and not slipping off into the bed. And so adding that straw, it gives you a lot of more traction. It keeps you up out of the mud. And if you add enough of it, you're driving right on it, and you're not in the mud. So the clay really does well with compost, straw, any sort of
organic
something
matter.
covering its surface.
Cool. Have you guys seen, so you said all those additions and then you had 3 inches. Did you see a difference in your green? I know. I know. I have heavy clay soil here too, and I put down so much material, and I'm like, where did it all go? I've had this conversation with Jesse. We actually made a video about this a while ago. But did you see a difference in your tunnels than out in the field in terms of how much organic matter was there?
I feel like there's a fair amount more left in the tunnels. Yeah. Heavy rain events, I think, is one of the main issues there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Because I struggled with, I was like, I'm not bothering with the clay soil, and I just built beds on top. And 2 years in, I was surprised I didn't see as much integration as I expected. Even with broad forking and, keeping plants growing. It's a tough thing to break, I think, without incorporating. And I've really considered, like, maybe, I don't know if you've thought about this or you've done this, but like incorporating some peat or compost, like tilling it in before you build beds. Have you guys experimented with that at at
Yeah, we did that last year. We got there's a peat bog just down the street from us that it's really expensive, but it's just like peanut buttery wet peat that they have, and didn't we harrow that in first to the clay layer, and then we added the kind of our potting soil mix on top, the compost peat mix right on top. So I think that can be really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it really mixes it down more than like half an inch or an inch, though. And as far as that whole idea goes of mixing it down deeper, I mean, the amount of work that it takes to do it, I just don't feel like it's really worth it.
Because the earthworms are going to do it anyways.
Well, the earthworms kind of do pull stuff around for sure. I feel like the main issue with that clay soil as a farmer is that it's hard to grow carrots, because, those long-rooted crops are going to have trouble with that heavy clay soil. So that's the only thing that's holding you back, really. And what I do to prevent issues with our carrots is we broad fork our carrot beds, like, militantly every time we plant carrots. We've been having great carrots, and it's a heavy clay soil under there. They're able to deal with it. It just needs to be kind of loosened up before you plant. And when you have that topping of that light stuff on top, carrots love that. They want that perfect tilt on top. It's going to take so much effort to get material work down into the soil that you might as well just dig a trench and fill it with stuff, you know? I mean, which is a great idea. That grows amazing plants, you know? Totally do that. It's just too much work. It's, you know.
There's also a lot of money if you're tilling in like yards of composts. The reward may not be there. I noticed that at my house and then also at Raleigh City Farm where I am now. Yeah, our carrots and a lot of the beds will only grow so big because they hit that clay layer and that's it. They're done. They just get wider and wider. Well, that's good to know. Are you guys, there's a question here from CP No-Till. And guys, if you have questions, please leave them in the chat here. He says, are you guys making any compost on site or are you bringing all of it in, or what's that mix up look like for you guys?
We're making it on site, but we haven't used it in our field yet. We have this pile that's been growing for 4 years. And I think it has we haven't done the best job of, we haven't kept it tarped really at all. And so there's been a lot of weed seed in there. I don't trust it to put it in our growing area, but I think we're going to use it around our house for our landscaping. And, you know, eventually it could go out into perennial plantings or tarped areas. But we're importing most of our compost, all of our compost that we're using in our field.
Yeah, I mean, we pull all our weeds, all our crop residues, all our stuff from the packing shed when we're packing vegetables. We pull that all to a pile. Our household compost, we compost everything that we can on the farm for sure. And we've got some nice piles going.
Also, the microgreen soil makes a lot of beautiful compost. And I tried to keep that separate for a long time, but we just decided to integrate it all together. And we're going to build some epic beds around our house.
But I mean, the main thing about the compost is that we don't have enough. We can't make enough at this point to build as much space as we need to build.
Yeah, I understand. I was doing microgreens. I was growing a lot of microgreens for the 2 years I was at my farm, and it's a lot of material that comes out. It's I feel like it's barely been used after the plant matter breaks down, and it's just awesome soil, and totally be used for other stuff for sure. Cool.
You might find cilantro germinating everywhere, but
yeah.
Okay. And so how are you guys preparing beds now, and has that changed as more people have come to the farm and you guys have had to streamline things, or things that maybe you tried in the first year or two that you're changing with either tools or technique and things like that?
Yeah, as far as building the beds, right?
Yeah, building or maintaining them, flipping them.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we had been doing when we first got here was, of course, shoveling the compost out of the tractor bucket while we drive over the bed, and building our beds slowly but surely that way. The past couple years, I recalled that I had a better way to do that I had used out in California, and that's mainly, you can only do it though the first time you're prepping the space, because you'll be driving across your ground the opposite way, perpendicular to the way you would usually drive over your beds, which means you'll be driving on your beds. So basically, we've been building new areas with a bigger tractor, a skid steer, that has like a 6-foot wide bucket, and I'll just drive sideways over to the bed and dump out a little bit of compost, and it'll make a little hedgerow where the bed's going to be. I back up and I dump it again, and then I'll shift my tractor over and to the next 6 feet and amend that. But I can only do 2 beds at a time because that's as far as the tractor can reach. Anyway, so that's basically how we're building new space. It's really quick. I built 24 beds in a day, was it? 100-foot beds. And what I do there is I'll mark out my beds with flags at the end of my runs, and I'll drive the tractor and harrow the native soil after we've occultated it and tarped it for a good long time. that'll mark out where the bed is, and then I'll do 2 beds, and then I'll bring the tractor in from the side, like I said, and dump in the hedgerows, and then I'll just go down that bed and harrow it so that it evens it out. It basically just rakes it and evens it out so it's flat like a bed. If you're planting that right then I would actually amend it before I had dumped the compost down. So I would put fertilizer down before I put the compost down, if I was going to plant into it directly right then. But otherwise, our bed prep is rip out all the residues of crop and weeds, make it so that there's nothing green there. And then you go in, we'll take our 5-3-4 fertilizer that has 9% calcium. It's an organic layer hen manure that's been composted. It's a local product. It's really good. We've been adding a lot of it and having good results. I'll spread that down with a bucket. We'll come in, we'll shovel out compost onto the bed if it needs more compost addition, and then I'll harrow it if I can get to the bed with the harrow. If it's on the edge of a greenhouse, then we'll use a tilthy that we just got this year, the tilther.
I like the
I like the tilthy better. That sounds better. Yeah, the tilther.
So yeah, and then basically that's our bed prep. What we try to think about when we're doing bed prep is what we're planting next, because sometimes you don't even need to harrow it. If you're not going to be pulling the paper pot transplanter through it or the Jang seeder, then sometimes we really don't need to harrow it unless we need to even out the compost or loosen it up top. So
I think as far as like adding more team members, though, that the main way the crew has been helping with the bed flip is just in the ripping out of the last crop. We do all the fertilizing ourselves. Matthew basically, or the boys, drive the tractor.
We have crew shovel.
And then we have crew shovel, but it's mostly, that's kind of a more high experience level position or whatever on the farm that we're dreaming of a farm manager who can come in someday and help us with the bed prep, but it's basically, we're still doing most of that work on our own.
Yeah,
as well as the planting, we do most of that on our own, unless it's like popping in a bunch of head lettuce or something. I'll have the crew help, but the paper pot we do ourselves. All the seeding we do ourselves. So the crew is more for the mobbing effect of just getting a big harvest done or getting a big bed flip done, bagging a bunch of greens, doing a bunch of cleanup.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I was at Jared Smith's place in February for Jared's Real Food. We did a workshop with them, and I don't have access to a front end loader, and I'm always jealous when people have them. Just watching him build beds that way. He did the same thing. He put down a bunch of straw and then came in with the compost from the side, and he just raked it out, and that was it. And I was like, wow, that's the fastest thing. Yeah, unbelievable. Very cool. All right, awesome. Let's see. We might have a couple questions in here. Tomato? I don't know. What's the most lucrative or cost-efficient organic crop in your climate and for your market? That's probably a hard one. Probably give a few, maybe.
Yeah, definitely. Lettuce, tomatoes, cut flowers.
Yeah, because we worked out how much money we make on a zinnia bed, and with the zinnia flower, you're cutting it every week, and
you get so many stems. And we try to get $1 a stem for our flowers. Hot peppers are really productive per square foot, but it's sometimes hard to sell a lot of them. But microgreens have a really high overhead, but a really high. We make a good. I'd say those are our top 5 probably.
Yeah, I feel like lettuce is pretty much an all-time winner because we do the cut greens and we do head lettuces of different types. We'll do mini romaines, we'll do big butterhead lettuces, we'll do big green leaf, and $4 a pop all day long. We can bring like 2 cases at least to a market, probably 4 when it's really humping in the summer. And then, tomatoes, it's hard to beat cherry tomatoes. Nothing moves quite like a cherry tomato on your stand. Like,
we grow the sun
slice your
golds
tomatoes
too,
too.
and we actually started selling our sun golds in half pint baskets this year because we usually would sell them in pint baskets. We shrunk them down like the kind you get raspberries in because they're really special. There's so much work, and ours were really tiny, and people didn't blink an eye at that little switch we made. So we really value our time and our staff's time, and we're trying to continue to educate our customers about like what the true price of food is. Last year, 80% of our income went back into the farm, or of our gross, of the farm income. So that's what I tell people sometimes when they blink an eye at our pricing, and like, well, 80 cents of this dollar goes right back into the farm. So that kind of helps people understand a little more.
So it sounded like you mentioned this before, and having products that sort of kept yourself like stand out in your market. You talked about like adding flowers to your salad mix. Is like the different head lettuces, is that also part of that? Just offering a different product that's not on other people's tables?
Yeah, and just we're such foodies ourselves that we know like the butterhead lettuce, it's just, there's nothing like it. It's just the softest, butteriest leaf, and the customers go, once they try it, they're just hooked. Same with the mini romaine, and it's really great. A lot of our elderly customers who don't have a big family to feed, they love those little mini heads. So just offering those different options. But then we have other people who buy like 5 or 6 heads of butterhead, like one for each day of the week. So
I like the idea of I don't sell at a market, but the way that you can make your lettuce or your salad mix stand out in any way. Like I know some people add microgreens or flat cut, edible flowers or anything like that. That like, hey, I want to get from these guys because they got a cool product. So yeah. I love that idea.
We also stopped using like bigger regular plastic bags, and we recently found a biodegradable polylactic acid bag by this company named Clear Bags online, and we've been using them. They actually show off the product really well, and they're biodegradable. I think how it looks on the stand is really important. Your stand and how it looks is really important. Everything about how you act when you're at farmers market is important. Engaging the customers in a really kind way, in a helpful way that's, you're just trying to get them what they want. You're not trying to tell them what they should buy. You're just there serving them and educating them about certain products. And then you have some standout products on your stand that people maybe haven't seen before, or maybe it's just a carrot, but damn, it looks good. Like it looks so good. And then you can say, well, it's, it tastes really good too, because it's picked fresh. And then they try it and it stays for 2 weeks in their fridge, and they're like, wow, I've never had lettuce stay for that long in my fridge. They keep coming back because they know the quality is good.
Is there a big variety of growing techniques and conventional versus organic and stuff at your market, or is it kind of all similar?
Oh yeah, we have every different type of farmer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mostly conventional. New York has a lot of old, family farms that have been in business for a long time. And, there's a lot of sweet corn around here. A lot of the farms have their own little farm stands too. And they do the sweet corn, they do their pumpkins, they do all these classic American crops, and the green beans, all these things, and we always have been more focused more on healthy diet and a lot of greens, things that really are super good for you, hard to find, and taste excellent. And so we try to find out, which varieties really stand out, and then we find, those ones, and we put them all on the same table, and that really works well for us.
Cool. CP No Till says, were you able to finish building your deer fence this year?
Yeah. The deer fence is up. It's the gates that I didn't finish, but I had to tear part of the fence down because when I was putting in a new water system on the land, we had to, of course, get an excavator through the fence. So the fence actually got dismantled slightly this year, which is all part of progress, all in the name of progress.
Okay. And so can you guys talk a little bit? I always like to hear about stories about with COVID this year and changes to the farm plan, and you talk a little bit about what happened this year and maybe what you're thinking about next year too.
Yeah, so pretty big changes. We had to pivot really quickly this year when we found out, like on a Thursday before market weekend, that markets were shut down, and we freaked out. And then we started an online store over that first weekend, and by like within hours of opening it, we had made our first sale, and within a week or two, our sales were probably higher than they had been if market were open. And we kind of just like took a few, we really were just figuring it out as it went along. And then as soon as markets reopened, the online store really kind of petered out, and we encouraged that. We didn't quite shut it down, but we still had a few customers using it. But it's starting to pick back up again now that markets are moving indoors. We decided not to do any winter markets this year, which is a big change for us. We usually grow year round and just take a little time off in January and February, but we're taking a break as of now from markets, but still starting the online store again. So it feels really great to have some experience in that, have it be a reliable source of income for us during the winter months.
Yeah. And some details about the online store. We had just a sort of basic GoDaddy website, and then we asked to upgrade it to an e-commerce site, and, took a subscription for like 4 years for that. And then we had to list all our products, take pictures, figure out how to use the website builder, and figure out a way to use the system so that we could make multiple drop sites, which was kind of tough because they didn't have a way to do that really on the website. So there might be some hurdles you have to figure out when you're doing this, but what we did is we just had, when people check out, they can write something in a special instructions box, and we'll just, have them write where they want their order dropped. And then we set up different drop points, and we bring it to that point. There's a bag there ready for them to pick up. It could be contactless, and they paid online, and there's their product right there ready to pick up. So everybody's
learned
happy.
A lot though. Like the first week we were doing free delivery for over $25, and quickly realized that was not gonna work out. Then we increased the minimum, and then we added a fee, and then we only had a few folks who needed to order for delivery after that. And we were able to do a few of those, but we kind of asked that people use drop sites. It's a real, I don't know, it was a great tool to use during that time, but it is also really a logistical nightmare a little bit. So people who do the like CSA that's customizable, I really am impressed by that, because that's really hard for us as market farmers. Yeah. We're used to just showing up, creating a stunning display, and then just letting people choose what they want. And we definitely messed some orders up, and as a business owner, that was just like terrifying, and I hate disappointing my customers. So kind of hoping we don't get a ton of orders this winter, but just enough to kind of keep us afloat and get food to our customer. A lot of our customers really rely on our stuff, so we're pretty loyal to them.
I know it was a scramble for everyone this spring and trying to improvise. So would you just like go in and update your inventory once a week, and then
yeah.
Okay, so just pretty much like a straight online store essentially, with a comment box where they want it delivered. Okay, you think? Are you? And how? So another thing I always think about in that situation is like, how are you able to get in touch with your customers? Because I know that can be tricky for people.
Yeah, we felt just like we had for years been talking about how we need an email list, but always just running around with the 3 kids and the farm. It's like it's hard to keep up with all those business goals. And so we hadn't made that one happen yet. So it was really just through social media. Our farmers markets, their websites kind of promoted us a little bit and sent people to our website, and people could just look us up online. We did advertise with some local radio stations for the first time ever. That was pretty exciting. I think we got at least 2 new CSA members through that. Our CSA also tripled this year, which was really exciting. We went from like 10 to 30 members. So slowly growing the CSA, which is a great way to feed our local town of Amsterdam, since we don't do any markets here. So that was really great to have a little more of a thriving CSA day out on the farm this year. And then a lot of our co-ops really stepped up, and there's 2 co-ops near us, and both of them really stepped up and ordered a ton of food. And we're hoping to pick that back up again. So wholesale is becoming a little more, after dealing with the logistics of the online store, I started to really start loving wholesale and just being able to drop up a big order to the co-op and let them distribute it. So, and they're committed to holding 70% of retail prices. So they'll buy our stuff at, they're only taking a 30% cut or whatever, and we're getting 70. So that feels pretty equitable. Like we can actually afford to wholesale. Yeah.
Cool. What's the name of the bag company again that you guys were talking about?
Clear Bags.
Okay.
It's really creepy and loud, but it's a really pretty product. And then we secure it with our label. So it's a way to get the label on there and seal the bag in one swoop. It kind of drives our employees a little bit crazy. The sound is a little annoying, but
yeah, it's clearbags.com. So CLEARBAGS.com. They have a lot of different products, but you're gonna find one that's poly. I think it's the Eco. Let me find it real quick. Hold on.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure people can find
They
it.
can. Yeah, totally. Let's see here. Are pre-made salads at market a decent option for value adding the vegetables that are also available to buy?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about that, especially drying herbs. And we do it all at home, right? And every time I make a dinner, I'm like, ooh, this could be something I could sell at market. But we're definitely daydreaming a lot about a certified kitchen in the future as a way to, at the end of the day, we could dehydrate our microgreens and create a really high-end table salt that's super nutrient dense, or like a smoothie powder with our microgreens. All the different products that we make in our own kitchen that we've, tested out on our kids and our family, and we love them. It seems like I need to do more research on how profitable it could be if we could make it work. But it's definitely something we're always interested in.
Cool.
Pursuing.
I think there's a lot of people that think about that, and then once they get into logistics, and they're like, "Oh, I need a commercial kitchen and all the things involved."
Well, yeah. We're in Amsterdam. There's a lot of opportunity. Real estate's very affordable. So one thing we've been considering, we're only like 7 minutes from downtown Amsterdam. It would be interesting to have a kitchen in town, super close to the farm. And it could, be a way to kind of connect our farm to the city, provide jobs for folks living downtown, and get some healthy food down there.
Well, I'm glad
kind of a day.
Okay. Cool. I'm glad you guys are going to take some time off. I'm a little jealous right now. And so what's exciting about next year for you guys? What are you looking forward to? What are some goals or projects or things like that?
Well, we're going to have a new water system. And I need to set up a bunch of sprinklers and different drip lines coming from that system to get it to the plants. So there's going to be a fair amount of continuation with that infrastructure development. Besides that, though, I'm kind of looking forward to a year that doesn't have too many major infrastructure jobs going in. Maybe some perennial plantings, some fruit tree plantings, some berry planting, which is really exciting for us. And then, of course, finishing Zone 4, which is really the light is at the end of the tunnel. We have just, maybe, 50, 60 more beds to build out there. And then the whole field that has been our baby for, more than 4 years now will be pretty much going. I've been really thinking a lot about all the loose ends, like the edge of your field that has weeds on it and it's hard to maintain because it's too close to the fence, so you can't get a mower in there. And I'm really thinking about, tarping, landscape cloth, 4-foot wide geotextile around the fence, around each patch, so that we're keeping the weeds from encroaching in on our field, and really starting to dial in all those things so that there's not these loose ends here and there. Building a tool shed for the the tools,
We don't have to give them the whole list, but the list is
There's a lot.
long. And the other thing that's exciting is we're going to try to scale up a little bit with markets. We're going to be applying to some more markets, trying to figure out how to run 2 markets on a Saturday, which we've never done before. So the divide and conquer. We know a few other amazing farmer couples out there who are just crushing it with like a few markets per Saturday, and it's definitely inspiring. So yeah, we're going to try to keep increasing production a little bit so that hopefully we can hire a farm manager someday. That's kind of the reason to scale up, I guess.
A little bit more.
Always working for, dreaming of the 40-hour work week and, you know, maybe a week off in the summer.
That would be incredible. I think we'd all be jealous of you guys.
Yes, winter squash, potatoes, they haven't been grown on this farm yet, and we're trying to get into those crops next year and trying to design a new system for those crops that works well for them. Probably, you know, tarping a good amount of space, and then, you know, trying to let the winter squash kind of creep over the tarp and just keep it tarped for a long time and try to slip the crops right in somewhere in there so that they work. That's exciting too. We'll be breaking ground in a new field. So that's big.
Cool. Well, Corinne, Matthew, thanks for coming on tonight. It was a pleasure having you on and learning more about your farm and all the cool stuff you guys have going on. Anything else you guys want to add, or anything else you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, feel free to check out our website, lovinmamafarm.com. It's got a lot of nice photos. You know, there's stuff there you can check out. And if you have any questions about anything we do, you can email us at lovingmamafarm.com at gmail.com, and Instagram, Lovin Mama Farm is up there, Facebook as well. Check out what we're doing and just keep in touch. And we'd love to help any growers who, you know, need any advice or any support.
Appreciate that. And I think I already put links in the description to this video for some of that stuff, so you can find that down there. And I just think it's really sort of inspirational to see a couple like yourselves and the diverse strategy you guys have between vegetables and flowers and the different markets and CSA and, you know, making it work and really kind of crushing it in a tough time. So thanks for sharing, guys. And
Thank you.
yeah, enjoy some downtime.
Thank you, bud.
All right, thanks for coming on tonight. Yep,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Well, big thanks to Corinne and Matthew from Lovin Mama Farm. Awesome to chat with them and hear their story. And yeah, awesome. And in 2 weeks, we'll have Spencer Rudolph from Sage Hill Ranch Gardens on. And I really appreciate your time this evening. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure you guys like the video if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.